Everyone. Aren't you ready to know your own strength? Aren't you ready to sort of harness the absolute wisdom that's already riding around with you, like that energy that you've got? I feel like this has been a strange week or so for most of us. So we're going to dive into that in a second. But if you're kind of ready to really know your own strength and power, then this is the perfect spot for you today. So, hi, my name is Jen, the founder and owner of Laughing Lotus Wellness. I'm a transformational purpose coach and expert. And what I do, well, hello, sister. What I do is I work with women who are really super brilliant, very successful, but have arrived to a place in their lives and they're not connected to it anyway anymore. For something happened, been there, done that. And that's what I love to do, is step into that space with women who really could use kind of a redo, that they felt this really intentional connection to their purpose and success at one point, but somehow along the way, they're kind of just wondering, is this all that there is? And we've gotten off track and we just need to change lanes. That's really what I work to do. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to get a different kind of clarity, which I'm super excited about. And I'm going to talk about some 5 tools that I love to see people utilize to really tap into awakening and utilizing their resilience. So these are actually tips that I would say I gleaned over years of being a clinical social worker. So I worked in the field for 20 years in a traditional psychotherapy setting. And then I went off and started garnering all sorts of certifications and things in the healing and energetic modalities. And so that's really kind of like what I love to teach about, is energy. So stay tuned, because at the end, there's something fun coming up that I want to tell you all about. So hang in with me for just a couple minutes. So I talk a lot with language around you having superpowers, which I know sounds kind of goofy, but really what I do believe is that we're all wired with innate wisdom. Meaning that the minute that you're born, there is this chemical and innate kind of experience that's happening really in this beautiful deep layer of who you are that already has all the answers, which is really cool. And I love this lens, because what it means is I'm not a guru for somebody else, but you are actually your own guru. You've heard me say this before. And so I love providing people the vessels, the kind of cars, the whatever transportation we can to get you to that place of awareness about your energy, tapping into that and what that looks and feels like, and how that actually really supports your purpose journey. So if you're following me, I'm going to assume that purpose is one of your jams. It's something that maybe you're really interested in living into as much as possible. I know it's a deep passion of mine. It has been for years. And so we're going to talk about your resilience as a superpower. And why is that? So this is kind of a strange, so this month is about awakening, right? So you might want to think about, how can you kind of like wake this part of yourself up to be super aware of it and be able to use it as much as possible. And so awakening, for me, as I imagine, it's sort of like the lotus being in the mucky, murky, gross water, right? And it's coming up and it's arising and it's in this beautiful white bloom and it's ready to sort of take in all the sunshine and do its beautiful thing just by blossoming and being in its own presence, right? So this is kind of that light that we want us to tap into ourselves. And so I love the idea of that muck and that murk as being the space for all of us that we experience the grit of life. And you've also heard me say I love gritty people, because I do. And gritty people are people that have been through some things. They have lived through moments, they've had hard moments, they've lived through some really hair-raising experiences, tragedy, trauma, etc. And yet they're these incredible, brilliant soul lights. Have you ever known these people? Have you known any of these people? You might be one of these people as well, but have you known people like this? And one of the privileges of my work of 20 years was witnessing and honoring people who did this really well. And so here's the 5 things that they did. And we're going to talk about why it's important. So here's the 5 things. So I do suggest, if you're interested, grab a piece of paper, because this is, I'm going to go. I'm going to go, and you're going to wish you remembered. So write this down. 5 things that people who had resilient superpowers did. Are you ready? 1, they utilized resources. I'm going to come back around. 1, they used resources. We're going to come back to this. 2, they were good and ready students. I'll explain these all in depth in a minute, because then you can take more notes if you need to. 3, they worked on personal growth and development. Okay. 4, they worked within their layers, which I'll define a little bit more fully in a second. And then I think they began the steps of developing their insight about their own resilience superpowers. That's a lot. Okay. It's getting like a little mini workshop. Things to do. Okay. They used resources. So the clients that I had that were the most resilient, that healed the most quickly and the most thoroughly, were people who accessed resources. So they were already sitting in therapy. So I want you to think of things like therapy, coaching, meditation, yoga, movement classes like Tai Chi or whatever, right? Anything it is, dance classes, it doesn't matter, some physical like movement, right? So movement in general. They tapped into perhaps using natural remedies. Maybe some of them used Western medication. Some of them might have done things like Reiki, or they might have participated in like weekend retreats or things like that, right? So they were busy doing things, and they were really tapping into the resources of all the stuff around them. So they weren't like, I have one shot at this, right? So that was really what I encouraged. And so the people that did the best, grew the most, were people that were really tapping into all of their resources. Okay. They were good students, meaning they were really open and receptive, right? So if someone shows up and they're like, yeah, I'm right on that. I'm just going to say, I've had a few of these people. I've probably been this person, by the way, too, right? Oh, I've been there. I've done that. Yeah, no, that didn't work for me. Yeah, that doesn't work for me either. Yeah, no, that's not going to work for me either. Okay, if that's the state that someone shows up in, they're not ready. So I'm speaking into your heart. I'm speaking into mine. When we show up to a new situation and our solution is, I've already done all this and none of this will work, we're not receptive. So as a good student, what we want to do is show up and go, all right, give it to me. What do you got? Okay, I've tried that. You know what? I'll give it a go again, because maybe last time I did it a different way. Maybe last time I was in a different space. So I show up with my grit, that knowledge, that strength, that internal strength, which is going to come up over and over and over again. That's what resilience is. It's internal strength, okay, to overcome, to live with, to manage the things that happen to us. And they were really open. They were transparent about what they knew, about what they didn't know. They were willing to step into uncomfortable spaces to do something differently. And to me, that's always the most fun marker of working with anybody, whether it's coaching or therapy in the past, etc., were the people that came in ready to roll. They were ready to take in new information, or information they'd heard but tried again. And so that is a really pivotal lesson for, I think, almost all of my clients, is that you may have done something, but you might have to do it 6 times before it clicks. So if you're out there, for example, meditation's a great, perfect example for this piece, is people go, oh, I tried that once. That shit doesn't work. Okay. Almost nothing works doing it one time. Okay. Almost nothing. I'm going to tell you right now. Perhaps Reiki, because Reiki is pretty powerful, right? But most of the things we're going to try, they're going to be more habitual, and particularly things that we'll have to do on our own. They might take time. Okay. So I want you to give yourself space to understand whatever you've tried. Maybe it was a yoga class. Maybe it was something else, right? Music, sound healing, what? And you went, try it again. Try it again and try it again. Okay. So doesn't mean money to tell you this. I'm not getting anything out of that. I'm telling you my personal experience. And I'm also telling you the witness of all sorts of people. 15,000 hours of psychotherapy. I did the math one time because I really wanted to know. 15,000 hours of clinical work with people. Okay. So there's a lot of wisdom coming at me. And so the more we try something, the more we become aware of whether or not it's a good fit for us. And not all things will be, not all, right? All formats of something will be, right? Is everybody going to be a Zen Buddhist? Nope, I can't be. But can I do meditation in 10 different ways? Absolutely, right? So we want to be open and receptive to knowing that even if we've tried something, we're going to try it again and again and again. Okay. All right. So being a good student, super receptive. They worked on personal growth and development. And so this is one of those things where they were people who wanted to understand themselves outside of a little vacuum. So maybe they read books, maybe listened to podcasts, they attended retreats and activities. They accessed all sorts of resources in different ways intentionally to grow themselves. So they weren't just like, I just want a real quick solution. They were like, comprehensively, I want to be a person that is stepping into what I know I can do the best and most effectively in this lifetime to live into my legacy, my impact, my purpose, whatever it was. They showed up geared up and ready and open to trying to take in different information to expand themselves. It's huge. Okay. All right, they worked in layers. So this is something I talk about a lot. And if you've taken any webinars with me or you've done any of those events or coaching, you know I speak about the layers. And the layers are really the pieces of ourselves that if you imagine at the very, very inside who you are, right? That's like your soul space. And then outside that's maybe like your heart space. And then outside that's the next layer, which is I think is wisdom and intuition. Forgive me because I usually do it the opposite direction. Look at this taxing my mind, right? And the next layer out is thoughts, no feelings, thoughts, physical, purpose. So this is the way that I think of it. You think of it however you like. This is a little bit of a play on the yogic kosha system, which I love, but then I adopted and transformed it into really what my experience of it was with people. And so what I want you to imagine is, let's say you have like 6 or 7 layers to your being, right? And there's a layer that precedes all things. Have you ever experienced this, right? I'm going to be talking ad nauseum this month about energy and awakening your energy. And so if you ever walked into a room with someone and instantaneously knew they were pissed, right? I just went out with a friend the other day. 2 seconds written on her face and I was like, something is wrong with her. She's not okay today. And so when we take in information like that from people, right, and instantaneously we're like, oh, something's going on here. That's energetic. Okay. And so we want to be able to step into energy awareness, right? And so we want to imagine that we emit energy. We do actually. Our heartbeat does, our energy, our emotions, right? And this is exactly what I'm getting at. Somebody looks either really sad or really, really pissed, and or someone is super, super joyous. We can be in their like, their like aura, their, I'd say, 20 feet out and pick up an energy marker of someone's being, who they are and where they are. And you feel it, right? And so this is sort of one of those things that I want people to get to be experts in. It's like, how can I begin to, one, read the energy around me and learn how to kind of sift through it for myself and step into using it as a superpower. Okay. And so we want to really imagine that what we do is we want to address all the layers of our being. So if I ever go in and the only thing I ever work on doing is taking really good care of my fitness, this is just an example. And all I do, right? It's my very favorite thing. And all I ever do is work out. This is not me now, but been there. Okay. Like, right. The focus was working out. Good for you. Great. Namaste. That's awesome. But then I go, oh, you know what? That doesn't seem to quite be cutting it. Now I notice that there's these things that are writing on, these thoughts that are writing around that are not really very healthy. My mindset, something's shifting. And I go and I maybe hire a therapist or a coach. And that therapist or coach helps me sit in some of the blocks, some of the stories, some of the things. And they say to me, you know what, Jen, it'd be really helpful though, is really if we've got your body moving. And not just moving, but you were tying your movement and breath. Oh, and all of a sudden now I'm adding breath work into my journey. So now I don't just go and lift weights. I do yoga, I incorporate some breath work, and I'm talking to someone. And you begin to see that what happens is specific kinds of work and resource that we use tap into more than one of those layers. That's always the money. And so for me, I'm always trying to talk to people about how you can access all the layers of your being, not 1 or 2 or 3, but all of that. So there's special things you can kind of do to tap into that. And that's one of the things that I love teaching my coaching clients about, and getting them kind of like a backpack of goodies that they can utilize moving forward for the rest of their lives. They know which things can attend to what layers more effectively and start using them on a regular basis. So people that heal more effectively, people that are more resilient, are also going to be doing this. They're not just going to attend to one layer, they're going to attend to all the layers. And so that's again, and all of it will connect, right? To do that, I'm going to have to utilize resources. I have to be open to personal growth and development. I have to be a good student. You can see that all of these 5 things, well, 4 of them really all tie together, because that 5th one is going to be a little bit different for every single person. And that 5th one is going to be defining your own resilient superpower. So most of us show up and we've had dings in life. I mean, I'm just going to assume that everybody listening to me has had a traumatic experience, lived through a tragedy. You've had something, because life is, we just have these things thrown at us, right? Okay. And so what I want you to imagine is that somehow you survive that. So somehow, and each of us does it differently, whatever it is that you're wired with energetically, your superpower, you have probably 2 or 3 things that you do almost all the time to maneuver through things. Okay. So I want you to imagine as a resilient superpower, Jen. So resilient superpower would be mine, and mine is always face forward. I have two that I think are very face forward that I'll use as examples. And then I'm going to try to think of a couple of good people that I know that I've worked with to kind of harness their energy as well. So I'm always willing to throw myself under the bus. That's always really safe. So one of mine is humor, face forward. I'm almost always using humor. So if people know me real well, they know that like my friend and I were talking, she was having a bad day. Eventually I cracked some joke about how this was not how I imagined our day going, but like cracking a joke at it. Right. And that was after we had processed for a minute, right? I'm not throwing her under the bus. I'm sitting and honoring. And then you're going to see my humor come in. So when I can, I'm going to combine tears and laughter as much as humanly possible. So even in the hard parts, you're going to see me, that's going to kind of wean its way through my layers, because that's where I love to share and connect with people, is in that humorous space. And so for me, that's always been a huge coping skill. So my resilience looks for sure like laughter. The other one for me is hope. I would tell my clients in my therapy practice, like I'm annoyingly hopeful. Like I am irritatingly, unendingly going to be nauseatingly hopeful. And so I just believe that we can begin again and again and again and again. And even though it can be very frustrating to have to do that when we're in the thick of things and maybe we're in some sort of pain, that I have seen people wind their way out of that muck and that grit a million times in my career. So you can't tell me you're not capable of it. And so I will be in your grill with my hope and my resilience and that humor, because those are kind of my two H's that I always say that I come with, that those are just the way that I am innately wired. I was wired that way. Some of it, yes, is a habit and something that I've nurtured, right? I nurtured those things. Those are two. I really believe that all of us are different. So two of mine might be totally different than my friend, my other friend, this coaching client. We're going to show up and we're going to have different ways of doing this. And so one thing I want you to identify today for me and for yourself is, what is your resilience superpower? One of my clients came forward for me. And so I know that I must be needing to speak about something about this. So I have a client that I worked with for years and years and years and years, and in different pieces of her journey, and had significant trauma. And I know that one of her resilient superpowers was creativity. And that sounds really funny, but her creativity was like off the effing charts. When I say, like, she would write a poem. She, like, one time came into my office, we were doing a piece of work. She had a suitcase with stuff in it that she was bringing into my office. And on the way in the door, the latch sprung open and her stuff fell out on the sidewalk. And it was so embarrassing. And she was laughing. And I went to get her and she was like laughing. And I'm like, what's happening? She's like, my suitcase of my stuff came springing out on the sidewalk. And all these people were coming in and out of the center. And we were crying. We were laughing so hard about it. She writes a poem. And I cried. I was laughing so hard. Like, her ability to create story, poetry, actual art, quilting, painting. I'm not kidding you when sewing. Oh my God, sewing in general. I am telling you, she was so talented. And I will tell you with absolute certainty that one of the ways that she funneled her strength was through creativity. It was one of her greatest healing resilience superpowers. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So she came into mind. Perfect, good example of something outside of my own wheelhouse, because I don't want you to just hear my stories. I would say, let me think of someone else. Yeah. Okay. So another woman that I worked with for years and years, and she also had a very traumatic history. A little bit older woman, kind of like after midlife, like I'd say in that, like 60s, 70s realm. Beautiful woman. Oh my God, just incredible human being. Another one. So blessed to know so many. And she had so many things that happened to her. And one of the things that I would say was her, and she had many. So I'm going to say two things is really cool. One time as she said to me, I have a spine of gold. And it really struck me because she was not a braggy woman. She was not like, this wasn't meant to be like, I'm amazing. Like, she literally talked about from the time she was a child that she envisioned that she had a spine of gold. So literally the way that she even imagined herself was made of this really sturdy, strong, beautiful material. And I thought that was so cool. But I will tell you, the thing that sets her apart for me in terms of a resilience was her freaking mindset. I am not kidding when I say, when I met her and she told me her story, first of all, one of the most profound stories I've ever heard in my entire life. And one of her stories is enough that would knock many of us off of our asses. I mean, like when I say truly, when I tell you from the bottom of my heart, she had enough tragedy and trauma in her life that one of them would have been enough to really take most of us out in some capacity. She had like 4 or 5. I mean, for real. Okay. And so her mindset was so freaking stellar. She just would bring the positivity. And she wasn't always positive. It didn't mean she couldn't honor and sit in her pain, but she brought the mindset. And so that mindset's so freaking powerful. And I just want to say she was one of the greatest examples of that, having a positive mindset that like this all means something for me. And I get to devise what that looks like and really harnessing that to make meaning out of something very, very painful. And I just like loved witnessing it on, like, I was like, if something ever happens to me when I'm her age, I want to be just like her. Like I legit was like, I want to be just like her. That's the kind of energy she brought. That's phenomenal to be living through that many tragedies and that many traumas and come on the other side and have a therapist look at you and be like, I hope I can be like you. Cause she was freaking incredible. Okay. And her faith. So for many people, your faith is almost, it can be a very profound act of resilience and a support system for you. And faith can be, yes, Christian, but it can also be faith in something else that's deeply meaningful to you. And so I also saw within her, I know her faith was a big, like, face forward writing component of what she did and how she showed up in her really painful journey. So I just wanted to say, right, there's a whole host. I could sit and list for you. I'm going to go through the list one more time. 5 tools for your resilient superpower. Okay. And these are literally gleaned from over 20 years. These are things that will be in my book someday when I get around to writing that sucker, because I'm too busy to write it. But it's there. It's in my head. It's just going to take me a minute to get to it. So 5 things people do, okay, to step into their resilient superpowers. 1, they use resources. 2, they are good students. They are open-minded. They hit the ground running. They're ready to learn and grow, and they're ready to try something over and over again to get it to work. Okay. They are working on personal growth and development. They're open-minded to utilizing all sorts of resources to help themselves grow. So not just resources, people, but books, podcasts, events, retreats, community. They see the value, right, in using different resources to help develop themselves and grow in a bigger way. They work within all their layers. I said there's, however you want to imagine yourself made up of layers. If we were like the physical outer layer, and then the next layer is like your thoughts, the next one's your emotions, right? I like to make it up just so we have a way to kind of envision it. I'm a really visual learner. And so you're doing things that tap into all of your layers. The most resilient people, that's what they're going to be doing. They're not going to do one thing and one and done. That does not work, not long-term. Even temporarily, if you get some resolve and resolution, it won't stick if you're not actually really harnessing the different layers of your being. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I wanted to institute it here because it's so fitting. And then what I want you to do is I want you to define your resilient superpowers. I can't look at you across the waves, across the socials and say, look at so-and-so. I know that you are most resilient in this. I said humor and hope are mine. I mentioned creativity from another client, faith, mindset. I can list and list and list and list for you. The stories of the people that I've been blessed to know and blessed to work with, and how I see that show up for them in spades. And so you'd be surprised that in the things that have been really hard for you, you actually do have some resilient superpowers that you probably likely call on pretty regularly. If you have one that will you drop it in the chat for me? Because I love, again, garnering some energy and garnering some wisdom so that somebody else, when they're tripping through this video, that they can get other ideas, right? So I've posted some, but I would love for you, if you know that you have a resilient superpower, for you to drop that in the comments for me. And again, not just for me, but for the other people that might take a listen to this video, let's let them share our wisdom as a collection, not just like my stuff, right? Because I'm like a flat Stanley. Like I love your input so much because that's so rich. Okay. So those are the 5 things I wanted to drop that in here this month as we're awakening. I want to comment on something quickly and then I'm going to wrap. It's interesting in this week, I've spoken to a handful of people who've said it's been a really shitty week. And that's really interesting because energetically, I'm also listening and taking in information that's saying like, oh, it's supposed to be this really hopeful time and da-da-da. But the number of people that are telling me, not just myself, it's been a weird week, is like staggering. I mean, in a random call with a support network of mine today, I was chatting with them and they were like, yeah, I've had a weird week too. And I was like, what is happening? Super strange. Why am I talking about that? Because in the month of talking about awakening and talking so deeply about the energetic expression that takes is really pivotal. And I want us to pay attention to that. Like, what is happening this week? I had a light week. I was super excited. I was like, I'm going to create content of the wazoo. I'm going to have time to really sit and focus, which I love because that's not always easy to come by in my business. And I was like, sweet, I'm just going to pile through stuff. Nope. Life had other plans. Energy had other plans. First of all, I felt like I got run over by a bus on about Monday. And it took me a couple of days to really like feel rested again. It was really awful. So I didn't feel rested. And I just knew that I was in a weird space. So I will be honest with you that in my work, there's some things I can do energetically. I can work through the muck, right? If I'm in that space, if I'm underneath that muck in the pond, I can do work regardless. I can create in that. Meditations and some of the things that come from my heart, I don't do in those spaces ever. They're sacred to me. And this, when I'm here in this space, not sacred space. I was meditating. I was doing all the things. And I want to be clear about this. I was doing all of the things right. And I think sometimes in our lives, we're going to feel like I'm doing all the things. And like right this week, I was like, I'm meditating and I'm sitting in my quiet and I'm doing my breath work. And right, I'm trying to do those layers we just talked about. Right. And for some reason, why does it feel so freaking hard this week? And so sometimes we are going to be an energetic expression around us for one reason or another. And I don't even know if it was the new moon. I'm not sure what it was for me. It wasn't writing itself like it typically would. And so what happens is when I get in those places, I start to get to okay, I have to release to this. Because if I dig my heels in, what happens is I create a whole bunch of resistance inside myself. And I'm like forcing something that doesn't feel right. And that's not in alignment. And so when things get like this for me, and they don't get like this very freaking often, I was like, I have to slow down. I don't know if I'm getting a download. I don't know if I'm having a transformation. I don't know what's happening, but I just know that something is happening and I'm not in the space I'm normally in. And rather than pressing forward and making myself do a bunch of things that I really wasn't feeling, I'm like, nope. I slowed way down. I took breaks. I still meditated. I did my self-cares. I did whatever, but I took breaks and I got outside. I did some things to kind of shake things up a little bit. Now today I'm starting to finally feel much better again. But we're going to be in moments, right, where resilience is going to be a little trickier. Because I'm a very resilient person. I'm very strong. I've got, again, tons of hope, lots of humor. I can find lots of ways through things. And I really do consider myself to be a very, very strong person. And strength, just pure strength, isn't going to cut it all the time. We're just going to have times where there's going to be things going on around us. And some of that, I'm going to be honest, I speculate is not within me, but around me. So I think there was some energy floating with a handful of things that were really kind of coming at me. And I had to spend some time releasing that. And that's not a normal thing I have to do. I release and I cleanse myself all the time, but I'm just saying energetically, there's some stuff. And I'm not the only person, like 4 or 5 people randomly have said to me, yeah, this has been a weird week. I'm like, so I'm not alone in it. So there's something. And when that shows up, one of the best things we can do for ourselves, my friends, is release. Is rather than holding the reins, and I talk to clients about this all the time in therapy, be like, imagine you digging your heels into the dirt, right? And I'm holding onto the reins of a horse and I'm like being drug, right? Behind this horse or this truck or this whatever I'm attached to, right? I can either do that and I can suffer more, or I can go, okay, I don't know what's happening. I release it. I'm giving over to this because what I'm doing is not freaking cutting it. And so there's something that's happening, and I'm just going to need to honor it and let myself go through it, be in the flow with it, even though I don't want to be here. I had 9 million things to do this week. We all do, right? All of us. And it was really hard the first day or so to be like in that space and like wanting to push through and like, I can just do it. And I got my tasks I had to do done. I mean, I was still doing the things I had to do, but there was a resistance. There was something going on that I was like, what in the hell is happening to me? Where is this energy coming from? And finally, I was like, does it even matter? I mean, I like to know because sometimes that does like let the pressure cooker piece of it out. But this week, I'm like, I don't know what it is. It's a culmination of all sorts of stuff, and it is what it is. And whether it's the moon or the change of the seasons or I'm getting cabin fever, I don't know. I just know I'm going to release into it. And I did. And now today, finally, like I said, Monday, really rough. Tuesday, not so great. Wednesday, not so great. Today, finally feeling like back to myself. We all have to have the tools to be resilient in this. And so, right, so in that moment, rather than digging my heels in and being so pissed and frustrated and losing more time and energy to it, it was like, okay, well, this is what it is. My resilience is doing my habits, and my habit is meditation. My habit is listening. So I listened a lot. I leaned in. I took some time. I respected and used self-care. That's also resilience. So it was like, I know I'm going to have to do the things even if I'm not feeling them. So what I don't have to do, I'm going to release. And what I can do, I'm going to step into, I'll take care of. And then the rest, I'm going to take care of myself, which is exactly what I did for 3 days. Now, was I as productive this week? Nope. Nobody's going to give me an award for this week. Nobody. But I did what I needed to do. Given the sense of energy coming at me and around me, I had to just respect that. So I did. So I just want to throw this out there, is that human piece as well, that despite the fact that you're going to have a resilient skill and tool, I know you have many and you're going to use them, you're still going to come into moments like I did this week where you're just going to have a sense that something is off. And you have to decide what you want to do with that. Do you want to stay stuck? Do you want to be pissed? Do you want to grip and hold and cram things in? Because what you will do is suffer more. And so there is something about the going with that flow and just respecting that there is something happening. I like to think there's big things happening around us when we get in these weird spaces, actually. So it's almost like if I mindset that there is something wonderful happening, like I'm getting these beautiful downloads or I'm being asked to grow and change. And this is like the metamorphosis. One of my clients sent this beautiful video, this beautiful image of like a butterfly and a chrysalis, and is like, I'm not who I was, and I'm still not who I'm going to be. But it was this beautiful image of their transformation. That's kind of what I think I feel like right now. I don't know what it's going to be on the other side of this, but I'm just going to trust that I was being called to something. And then if I don't have to hang on to it the same way, I suffer less. So even within the discomfort, I don't have to suffer more than is necessary to be in this weird state. And so I hope if that lands with you, please let me know. And that makes sense. You've had times in your life where like, I'm not even sure what's happening. Why is this exactly? I'm really intuitive. It's really strange this happened this week because I can't put my finger on it yet. Now, give me a couple weeks. Maybe I'll come back around and it all makes sense. It all kind of come together for me. But right now I'm sitting in it. This is what it is. Okay. So take your 5 tools. Please, like I said, write them down and then plug your own superpower into the chat. I would love to know what your resilient superpower is because you've got them meaning more than one. And so there's a tendency you have, there's a habit to call upon certain things to really cope and heal yourself. And I would love if you're willing to share those with the community that you share that in. Okay, last thing. So here's what I have coming up. I have coming up an energetic webinar I'm super excited about. It's called A Prize. A Prize is taking place Wednesday, the 16th of March. So we've got a couple weeks here, and it's going to be from 7 till 8:30 p.m. And I'm super excited because all of the things that I host are experiential. So you're going to come in, you're going to learn. It's going to feel like you're drinking from a fire hose. I'll warn you, because this energy one is a big one. I'm going to have to cut out content because I started making, that was like way too much material. It's like really like I could do like a 6-hour webinar on it, but I'm going to do an hour and a half. And so we will always have some meditation. We'll likely do some tapping. I love kind of like putting in some healing resources around you. So you come in and you learn, but you're also actually having experience with it. And so this month is really about tapping into your energy. So this is exactly, you're going to hear me use that word about 9 million times this month. I'm going to warn you in advance, but I invite you to sign up for that. It is free. Again, it's Wednesday, the 16th of March. And all you have to do is go to laughinglotuswellness.com/webinar. Again, that's laughinglotuswellness.com/webinar. Super easy to get signed up. Don't miss out. There's not one, but 2 bonuses. And I promise you, like when I say things like that, I'm not skeezy. I'm not yanking your chain. The bonuses I give when I do these events in person are actual bonuses that you don't get otherwise, except for attending something. So that's not some like, oh, I'm going to do this, but then I'm going to give it to everyone who wants to have it down the road. No, I go through periods of time where I offer different bonuses. This bonus is really fun. There is a really unique one that I'm really excited to drop in that evening for people who are interested. So you have to show up and come and join me for an hour and a half. I promise you. The last one people said really good things about feeling like they took some things away, which is exactly what I want. I want you to walk away feeling like you've got your own tools and your own sense of ideas about how you want to continue to move forward and grow in that area. So trust me, that's what I'm trying to bring to you as a teacher. So again, that's laughinglotuswellness.com/webinar. I would love to share space with you for that evening for an hour and a half. Like I said, it's going to be like fire hose material, but lots of good experiential items. And I'm really excited to bring that to you. I'm already working on the meditation in my mind. I've got it started. So I'm super excited to be bringing you all of that experiential piece along with the learning, because that's really the power is not just taking wisdom in through the mind, but as having an actual embodiment journey with it as well. So that's really kind of sending it through the layers and you're tapping into that space. So I'm always, I'm always working into those layers of being. And that's what I do when I do my webinars. So just know that's what you're going to be getting. So I hope to see you there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I look so forward to seeing you next time. Back on Thursday at 12, as always, Central Standard Time. And you can always look for my vlogs this month. Again, the month of March is all about awakening. So I hope you'll go catch those, because those are other nuggets of wisdom. I don't repeat the same thing each time I'm coming in either a video like a vlog or whether I'm doing it live. You're not going to get the same content. So just know there's always different content. And if you ever want to tap into that, all of my stuff is on my website. You can go check that out anytime. That's under the purpose tools. There's all of the videos and all the stuff that I host is right there. But come catch me live. This is the fun stuff, because this is where you get to come ask questions and engage and share community. So this is really kind of like I love the vlogs are great because they're informative, but like I would not just rather teach. I would rather teach and be in community and share space with you and answer actual questions you have. So I get really excited about the live events because that's where we get to engage a little bit more. So this is Jen, Laughing Lotus Wellness, signing off, sending you blessings, love, and light until next time, and supporting you on your rise to purpose. Take care, everybody.